right, so as I mentioned, the bad thing, so to speak, about what we just did, um, is that we're hard coding the first name, the last name, the hours, and the rate. And since we're always multiplying hours by rate to get the gross, this is always going to print out first name Jeff, last name Scott, hours 40, rate 10, gross 400, and the program run. It'll always print that out. That's not typically what we're going to want. So we're going to change that in just a second. Also, just so you know, and thanks again to John, because I should have thought of it but didn't. If you do want to change your own font size, it's under Window, Preferences, and you go to General, Colors and Fonts. Then underneath there, you go down to Java, and underneath Java, you go down to Editor Text, and you click Edit, and that should look familiar to everybody. All right. So I made it 14. It's actually probably bigger than it should be, but I'd rather make it a little too big. And when I say it's bigger, when we start putting more code in here. Also, please be aware of the fact that I've already explained what most of the stuff is over here, okay? But there's other stuff that we're not going to talk about that's over here. All right. Notice here it's got your package, what's under your package, what's under that, etc. I'm not going to go over that. We go over that stuff in a little bit of depth and breadth of coverage when we get to the Android portion. All right, but for now, this is fine. Now, what I'm going to do here, for lack of better words, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing because it's going to save a lot of time. If you haven't saved, make sure you do a file, save all. I already have, as you can see. But take your mouse, put it in there any place, do a Control-A and a Control-C to copy all of that code. You'll see why in just a second. And if you say, well, I do edit, copy, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I just want you to copy all of it, okay? All right. After you've copied it, go back to File here and do a Close All. And you're back to here. We're going to create a new project, but we're going to copy all of that code in. So we don't have to start from scratch. Okay, we'll have to make a couple changes, but we'll be able to write this next program probably in about 2 minutes. All right, and then the next one, which is an offshoot of that one, we'll be able to write that one in 2 minutes. If we get all 3 of those done today, that's a great class. That's a great start. Then what we will do on Wednesday is I'll take literally 5 minutes to go over Chapter 1, what I consider to be the most important stuff that's in there, and then we're going to go right into Chapter 2. The stuff that I'm giving you right now is all stuff that you learn in Chapter 2. Okay? So as we did before, I'm going to do File, New, Java Project. This one, I don't want to type employee again because I already have an employee. So I'll just call it employee 2. Notice, did you see this? Look up here. A project with this name already exists. See that? But as soon as I put a 2 in there, it goes away. All right? I want to use the default location. Everything else is cool the way it is. So I'm just going to click Finish. And you'll see there's my employee 2. So it's already started creating it for me. All right? As we did before, I'm going to right mouse click on the source folder, do a new, go down to package. And these, you can have the same package name all the time. It really doesn't hurt because they're in different folders. So as I did before, edu.blackhawk.jscott. And again, it's under employee 2 this time. I'm not even sure what this createPackageInfo.java is. It creates a bunch of stuff that you really and truly don't need, so I keep it unchecked. All right, so now we've gone in, we've created the new project, now we're creating the new package, and I'm going to click Finish. I'm again going to right mouse click in here, click New, and I'm going to put my class in. And this may sound funny, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with me calling this employee again. It's just like having multiple folders and having the same file in every folder. You can do that. That's kind of what we're doing. All right, so I'm calling that employee. Again, I want to check that. So I've got main. We're going to copy it in, so it really doesn't matter if it's checked or not. But it's a good idea for the first 3 or 4 chapters to get used to doing that. And I'm going to click Finish. All right. Now see all that cool stuff we put in there? We don't need any of it now. And we're going to get error messages. Don't worry about it. If you saved everything like I told you to do, then paste it in. Okay? But my package, which is now, see how it's still edu, jscott, etc. I don't have to change anything. I don't get any error messages. Okay? And I called it employee like I did before. So we could run this right now, but it would be kind of stupid because it would be the same stuff we did before. All right, so we're going to go in and now we're going to make some changes. Now we don't want to give it a first name or a last name. And we're going to set the hours, like we said, equal to 0, and the rate equal to 0, and the gross equal to 0. So we're going to keep all those. Now if we wanted to, and it wouldn't be a bad idea, we could put comments in here. First name, last name, hours worked, hourly rate, gross, which is hours times rate. So I'm just showing you putting a little bit more documentation in there. Instead of saying my first Java program, it's now my second Java program. All right? Now, the program is totally fine the way it is. The program is totally fine, but if I run it, I'm going to save everything now. But if I run it, it's just going to say first name, and it'll be blank. Last name, it'll be blank. Hours, 0.0. Rate, 0.0. Gross, 0.0. And the program run. Does that make sense? All right. So what I'm going to show you, and you're going to get an error. I want you to get the error because I want you to see how Eclipse does some stuff for you. Okay. So what I want to do is before we've got the gross equal hour times rate, I'm going to hit enter a few times right there. All right. And I'm going to put some code in here. Okay. I'm going to move this up so you can all see it okay. Now, when I put this first thing in here, I'm going to get an error. All right, so I'm going to say this. Scanner keyboard equals new scanner system.in. Right there. And if you did yours the way I did, you'll see errors like I see errors. Anybody want to take a wild guess why it's giving me an error right there? There's no penalty for wrong guesses. Yeah, you're on the right track. Yes. It doesn't know what a scanner is. And we're not defining the scanner. It's defined in another file for us. Notice now if I take my mouse and I put it where that error is, it says scanner cannot be resolved to a type. So it's got these quick fixes for you. And I'm going to choose the first one, which says import scanner java.util. And you can do that, but please look. Would you agree that I've got my package statement and then I've got a blank line? Would everybody agree with that? Notice what happens after I go and do the quick fix. It put that in there for me. That's where scanner is defined. I could have typed it in manually myself. But if I'd spelled scanner wrong or screwed it up in some way, so what a lot of people do is when they start adding stuff into their programs, they know they're going to get error messages, and they just do the quick fix that's available inside of Eclipse. Now, you don't have to do that. Make sure I'm taping good. You don't have to do that, but it's just a little nicety that if you want to do it, you can. Now, notice, can you see that now you may or may not be able to tell, now that's in yellow. Anybody want to guess why that's in yellow? Because we haven't used it yet. And what it's saying basically is you've got this variable that you declared that you're not using. So notice the quick fix. I'll get rid of it for you. So if you choose that, the line's gone. It literally removes the whole line. I don't want that. Then I have to put it in again. All right? So I'm going to put some code in here, and it may not make a lot of sense right now, but it's stuff that we will be going over. So I'm going to put into about 8 lines of code that are very similar to one another. All right. So I'm going to say system.out.println. dot print, not print line like we did below, but print, please input first name. Oh, that's me, sorry. Now what I want to do basically is I want to do the equivalent of these two lines. If you look up on the screen, I want to do this for first name, last name, hours, and rate. Does that make sense? I want to read all of them in. Since I don't feel like typing, I'm going to take these two lines, copy them to the clipboard, and paste them, and paste them, and paste them. Now, I'm not getting any errors, but now if I ran the program, it's going to ask me for my name 4 times, my first name. So I've got to go in now and make some changes here. Alright, so I'll give you a second to put those in. Please type them in carefully. These first two say next line. The last two say next double. We'll talk about what this means in just a second. Good time to save. If you'd all quickly take a look up here, because we're done. So now notice if I say run, notice what happens down here. This is my area down here. So now it says please input first name. John. Last name, Wanda. I think I spelled it right. Hours worked, too many. No, you can't say that. I don't think it'll take that. 100. Hourly rate, 50. And there it is. Okay? But now every time we run it, we can conceivably at least put in different numbers. And if you say, well, that isn't formatted, there's no dollar signs, don't worry about that. We're going to get to all that stuff. But that's the whole second program. This one allowed for us to do input, but to do input kind of manually. This is the equivalent of console input. All right? And what I'm going to show you in just a minute is another way we can do input, and it's as gooey as we get this whole semester. You're going to get a little box that comes up that's kind of like an input dialog, and then you'll have an output dialog when we get done. All right? We're going to do that next in just a minute or two. Did you put paren after the next line? Double here, double there. Again, this is all stuff that's on around page 100 of the book. But to me, it makes much more sense to show it to you. I mean, I like doing as little lecturing as I can. I'd much rather lecture entirely like this. Just keep showing you code and code and code and code and code. And some people get it that way. Other people have to have the book. It's their blankie. You know, they just have to have, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And some people are more like I think I am. You're kind of in between. You like this, but you still need to have some reinforcement done in there. Now, you may or may not have noticed this, but look on line 17. It's still giving me this thing right here that says there's a problem. Before it said it wasn't being used. Well, it's being used now. It's here. Keyboard is here, and it's here, etc. So why am I still getting something? Well, now what it's telling me is, hey, there's a possible problem with this. There's a memory leak because you opened up a keyboard and you never closed it. And it's telling you there's a possible problem. I will tell you that if after we go over the next program, if you never use this, ever, I would say good for you. Then you don't have to worry about this. I do it the other way that we're going to look at in just a minute. I do it like that every time. But the difference again between these is now we didn't hard code our values in there. We just set them up so that it was the empty string and 0.0 for all of them. Then we said use system in, which we defined, and this doesn't have to even be called keyboard. You know, Micah, you can type in scanner Micah equals new scanner system.in, but then it's going to be Micah.nextLine or whatever. Most people call it keyboard because that's kind of what it is. All right, but it doesn't have to be that. And scanner again is defined in here. And you may or may not have already realized it. Guess what? That's a special package that's already been written by the people who create Java. All right, it's under Java, and it's under the utility package, and it's basically the scanner. I think it's the scanner method, or it's the scanner class. I don't remember, probably the class. And it makes it available to your program now. All right. But all we're doing is we're saying here, okay, through my keyboard, and since these are strings, since first name and last, I guess I spelled last wrong, didn't I? Since first name and last name are strings, we use what's called next line. Since hours and rate are doubles, we use next double. Again, this is all stuff that we're going to be going over, so if it doesn't make a boatload of sense right now, don't let it bother you at all. All right? I'm going to save it. I'm going to do exactly what I just showed you before. In other words, I'm going to do a command or control A to highlight it all, control C to copy it. Then I'm going to close this. And I'm going to start yet a third one of these. So File, New, Java Project, and I'm going to call this Employee 3, and click Finish. And there's my Employee 3. Then I'm going to right mouse click on here, New, Package. Again, I can still call it Employee, that's fine. Finish, and under my package, New, class, and I'm going to call that employee. Just to show you the difference, I'm not going to click here where it says public static void main. So I'm going to click Finish. And you'll notice what's not in there. You don't get the main. All right. Now I'm just going to highlight all this and paste my other one in. And now we're going to make some changes to that in just a second. What does it like? Oh, I made the name of my package employee. That was smart. Have to say employee here. Really stupid, but that's fine. I think I can change that too. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to do this again to bring up an input dialog to ask us the information we want and an output dialog to show us the information. So in other words, we no longer need this import Java util scanner. We don't need that. And I don't need any of this stuff in here that says scanner. So I don't need that. And I don't need any of these system.out.println statements. So I don't need any of those. So now, as you notice, you've seen this before, I get the underlines here telling me you've got this first name, this last name, etc., all this stuff, all right, and all of this stuff that's in there, you're not using it. And the gross, it says, wow, it's not used. Well, technically it is used, so I don't know why it's giving me that, but it is. All right. But what I want to be able to do now is I want this to be at least semi-GUI, all right? So what's going to happen in here in just a minute is you don't have to type this in. This is what's going to be added. Input javax.swing.jib option pane. That's going to be added for me automatically in just a minute. But I don't want to type that. That's too much for me to remember. So I'm going to get rid of it. All right? And I'm going to come in here, and I want to add one more variable in here. And I'm just going to call it input. And I'll say original input. You'll see why we're using this hopefully in just a minute. So I just added this line right here, the one that's in blue. You don't have to put all your strings, then your doubles, etc. We're going to get into what all that means. I could have had a string, then a double, then a string, then a double. I like to keep my variables of the same type together. It just makes it easier for me. But you don't have to do that. By doing that, I'm establishing a standard for me. All right. So I've got to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or 9 lines of code. So I'm going to put those in now, then we'll go back and look at them. Okay? Now what's going to happen here is I'm not going to have enough room on the screen. So I'm going to put this on 2 lines. Everybody hear what I said? I just don't have enough room. Well, and I would have enough room if I put the size back again, but I'm not going to do that. All right? So if you want to put all of it on the same line, you can. You can put it on multiple lines. It doesn't matter. So I want to do my first name, and then I want to do my last name. Notice what happens now if I take my mouse and I put it over J option pane. It gives me some of the built-in help. It's literally going out, for lack of better words, I think, to the Java help system to find that stuff. And I can come down in here and I can look at it. It's another way that you can go in there and you can learn more, about whatever it is you're working with. Now, if I ran this right now, I'm going to get an error message because it doesn't know. See, I thought I'd remove that. I guess I didn't. There. So now it doesn't see it. So it says quick fix. Do I want to import it? Yes. Boom. And it puts it back in there for me. So again, you can manually put in those you can manually put in your import statements, or you can have Eclipse put them in for you. All right. Now I'm going to save this. The program's not done. Did you hear me? The program's not done. But notice when I do run now, what happens? See that? That's the GUI. So please input first name. Please input last name. It's not going to do anything with it because I didn't put the rest of the code in yet. All right? Now I want to show you something. I want you to look at this. Please, everybody, look. All right? I'm going to do a run. All right? And now if I say 34, system thinks my name's 34. But it didn't put in the number 34. It put in the string 34. It's not the number 34. The reason I'm telling you that is if I did this same kind of thing, I'm going to put this in, but I'm going to remove it right away. So if I did this, so if I came through here right now and I said hours equal this, please input hours. All right, if I did that, first of all, you see it doesn't like a lot of stuff here. All right, it says I could fix that by converting the type of hours to string. I don't want to do that. But let's just suppose for a second that it worked. All right, if I ran this and it was expecting a double and I put in a string, the program's going to blow up. It's going to be so easy this first semester for you to blow up every program you do, because we don't get into exception handling until next semester. All right, so to make sure that doesn't happen, I don't want to do this. I want to use this input value here. So I want to say input equals that. Notice how it went away. Then I want to take and I want to throw it into hours. So I want to say hours equals so I'm telling it to put it into a string and then convert it to a number. Okay? Now, you're typing and that's fine, but if you just look for a second, I want to show you what I meant before. So I'm going to come in here and it's not going to blow up. So even if I put in there for hours, it's not going to blow up here, but watch what happens. I'm going to put in hello. Now watch what happens. Well, down here, you may or may not have noticed it. It's like, hey, wait a minute. You got a number format exception because it was expecting a number and I put in hello. And it didn't know how to handle it. So it blew up. We'll figure out and we'll talk about how to handle that next semester. But for right now, this is fine. All right, so I want to do this. Then I want to do it again, and I want that to be the rate. All right, so now I've got all of this in here. Change rate to a string. Ah, thank you. That's all my input. There's only one more line I've got to put in, and that's to output it. Because again, and I'll come right back to this. Notice if I run this now. Let's assume I know what I'm doing. That's a big assumption, but first name, last name, hours, and rate. Boom. It doesn't print out anything because I haven't told it to print out anything. So all of our inputs work as long as we put in inputs of the right type. So I'll give you a second to do that. And the last line, it's one line of code, but I'm going to space it out over 4 or 5 lines because it'll be too wide otherwise. All right? Not hearing a lot of typing, so I'm taking it for granted that most people are pretty close, at least. In other words, I can at least move it up a few lines. All right? So let's just quickly talk about this. The reason I didn't need that there is I'm putting a string into a string. I'm putting a string, whatever I put in there, into a string. But now I'm attempting to take and put, if I tried to make that hours, I'd be attempting to take a string and put it into a double. So I'm telling it here to take and grab this, put it into a string variable, then convert that string variable, and thanks, John, convert that string variable over to a double. All right? This right here where it says double with a big D dot parse double, remember parse double from JavaScript? Works the same way pretty much. Except in JavaScript, I could put in like 34A. And the program wouldn't blow up. It would just grab the 34. Here you put anything non-numeric in, it blows up. All right? So I now have all my inputs set. So now all I have to do, now I do my calculation. Now I've got to do my outputs. I'm going to open up some room here. You don't have to open up that much, but I'm just going to put it right here. So. Again, I'm just going to run out of room, so I'm going to throw this over several lines here. I don't think there's any errors, but I'll bring it right back, but I'm going to run it quick just to make sure there aren't. So there's my output. Again, you already have this code, just so you know. It's under that payroll folder that's under the folder with today's date on it in the in-class folder for the class. All right? And I don't expect for 100% of this to make sense right now. I really don't. So if you go, well, I got mine to work, but I don't have a flaming clue as to what I did, that's okay. By Wednesday, if you get a chance, please look over, just scan Chapter 1, spend 10 minutes on it, but go over Chapter 2, because that's what we're going to spend the rest of that period on. All right? And this null here, for now, we'll get into it at a later time, it's just a necessary evil. That's the first parameter that you're supplying to the show message dialog. Okay? Now, and if I don't care, like for here, for example, I could have had hours worked. I was just being a little anal with all that stuff, but it doesn't matter. Hourly rate, gross pay. I could put a $sign on there if I wanted to, but there's much better ways of doing it than that. And that's what we'll get into in later classes. So if I run this again now, okay. And like I said, if it doesn't all make sense, at least what I wanted you to understand is how we're kind of setting the program up. They were all three the same program. The first one we hard-coded in values. The second one we set it up that you were getting the values in from the console. And the third one is semi-GUI, for lack of better words. But it's the same. The only line of processing in the whole program is that one. Everything else other than that is input and output. I guess you could say that that's not really true. That's a conversion, so that's processing, and that's processing. All right. But if we looked at it, if it made even a little bit of sense to you right now, then you're on your way. All right, so like I said, quickly scale your way through Chapter 1. Not a whole lot in it. As I mentioned to you, especially take a look at the part that's around page 19 or 20 or something like that, that talks about object-oriented programming. Then Chapter 2 is on, this is what a Java program is. It's a long chapter. You've kind of been warned, for lack of better words. All right? And we're going to go through probably just about all of it on Wednesday. Then the first program, yeah, you'll be assigned that, but we're going to do it as class. All right? And we're going to, I don't know if we'll do the miles per gallon. It's one of the ones. I've got it already here. I've got it done already. All right? Questions? Or nothing but questions? All right. All right, that's all I had then. Oh, if you look at this, I just told it I wanted to exit Eclipse. This will ask you every time unless you check that. And if you do check it, then it will never ask you again. And I'm going to copy all of these. If you want to change it so you're the administrator, I would have no problem with that. I don't know if that's...
I can change if I'm the administrator. I can just maybe change the email address.
Yeah, that'd be fine. You want to do that? That'd be great. I mean, I don't care. You know, I just remove it right away. But you know, it's like I said, it doesn't even tell me who it is. It just says, you know, kind of attention. You've had a new account has been set up. That's all it says. Okay. Yeah. That either way is fine. Thank you.